Hello, how's it going? Dave Brons here, and we're going to do another podcast today. And I think with the podcasts going forward, I'm going to just do them more, just like film them on my iPhone or whatever, and less focus on the high quality video. I just want to literally capture something that's a bit more spontaneous and not spend as much time editing. Because really these podcasts are just about sharing my thoughts with you. And communicating something. It doesn't really matter if they look nice, or it doesn't to me anyway. So it's a bit. I want to maximise the time I spend creating music and chatting to you guys, and spend less time editing videos. So anyway, the last podcast was called Art as Resistance, and I talked a little bit about a lady I met on a run in the park who was picking up rubbish, and my thoughts on kind of this, in a way, the futility of trying to pick up rubbish at this spot where people just seem to trash the place all the time. And yet this just really inspirational example of the importance of just persisting and resisting, being put in a box, resisting the constant flow of things to create something beautiful. A bit like that old story, somebody who's walking along the beach saw all these starfishes sort of marooned on the beach, and picked up one starfish and threw it back into the sea. And the story goes that the child said, what's the point in doing that? You're not making a difference. And the dad answered, yeah, but it made a difference to that starfish. So there's kind of like this principle of the importance of creating art for art's sake, really, just for being creative. Anyway, today's episode is kind of the second part of that, and it just came to me whilst I was out running. I was listening to a podcast by Radiolab, and if you don't like listen to podcasts, Radiolab is a really good one to start with. It's stories about science and stuff. And it made me think of that Joni Mitchell song, "You Don't Know What You've Got Till It's Gone." Yeah. Bop, bop, bop. Hey, farmer, put up a parking lot, paint paradise. Whatever it goes. I think that's the wrong lyrics. See, that's why I write instrumental music. I can't really sing. Anyway, so it made me think about that. So I'm going to talk about that. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. So last week we went in the studio and recorded drums and bass for my album, and there's some videos on my YouTube channel about that. And what I'm really looking for, because this album, we want it to be super epic. We're going to get the best musicians possible. It's going to be all about Lord of the Rings, and we want it's pretty epic in scope. So just asking people who listen to my podcasts and buy my music to invite people to sign up to my mailing list, which they can do at davebrons.com. And they'll get 3 free tracks when they do that. And then when the crowdfunder goes live next month, they're going to get my entire first album for free as a digital download. So that's a great incentive to get people to sign up if they like the kind of music that I do. If you're not sure what my music sounds like, check it out on Bandcamp or Dave Brons, or head to my website. Anyway, that's stuff out of the way. So today's episode, look, I'm writing on a pad. Look at this, old school, writing stuff down. Actually, when I do these kind of things, I always write stuff down. I just find it kind of flows better than trying to type it on a computer. So yeah, so you don't know what you've got till it's gone, as Joni Mitchell said. And this week, I want to talk a bit about gratitude and creativity and a resistance to, and the art of resistance and how that gives us purpose, really. On this podcast, Radiolab, it talks about a brilliant scientist called Anne Adams, and she was a cancer research scientist, a brilliant biologist. And basically what happened is her son, Alex, was in a really bad car accident, and she decided to stay at home and help him recover. And then all of a sudden, she just sort of decided to quit her job. She quit science altogether, actually, and became a full-time artist. And basically her husband, Robert Adams, talks about this amazing woman and how she just started to paint, and they converted a room in the house into a painting studio, and she'd often spend 8 to 10 hours painting, and she was just incredibly prolific. And her husband was like, well, it seems a bit weird. She painted a bit at high school, and it seems a bit crazy that she's just given up her job to do this. But he just decided to kind of go with it, and she became a quite successful artist. And then she decided to try and put the music of Ravel's Bolero into painting, and the paintings got bigger and bigger and more kind of abstract, and like she'd go through phases of just painting strawberries, for example, in a million different ways, and just spend weeks and weeks just painting strawberries. And she finally, the music of Ravel's Bolero really struck a chord with her, and she sort of painstakingly took each note and dissected it and assigned a different colour. And for the louder notes, it would be like squares and triangles, and the louder it got, the shapes got bigger, and so on. And then after a while, her husband started to notice there was something kind of wrong. Something was going wrong, and she started to really become forgetful. And in the end, they realised that she had a degenerative brain disease. And it got to the stage, and you can hear this on the Radiolab podcast, where she struggles to remember her name. She can't remember where she lives. She struggles. She starts to struggle towards the end with motor functions. And sorry, I'm just getting a bit like, just thinking about it kind of makes me feel really sad for this lady. But and it turns out that Ravel himself suffered with the same disease. And apparently what happens is this part of your brain which controls speech becomes severely, sort of wastes away. And as the part that controls speech goes away, the other parts of your brain that the speech function suppresses just absolutely become alive. And this sort of obsession with repetition and colour and vibrancy just comes alive. And it's not uncommon with people who get this disease, where they could have really be accountants or have a really serious job, and all of a sudden they find a penchant to be creative, because that kind of it's like the volume gets turned up on colour, and the volume gets turned up on everything that's visual, and things that are creative, like music, things like music just get a heightened sense, and like your brain becomes almost obsessive, like it's just like can't shut up that need to express this newfound understanding of colour and the world that surrounds us. So Ravel had that as well towards the end of his life, and his style of music changed at the point, and the experts seem to think that it's highly probable that at the start of him getting the disease is when he started writing the Bolero. Do you guys know Ravel's Bolero? Some of you, if you're old enough, might remember it from Torvill. Is it Torvill and Dean? I can't remember. The ice skating people in the 80s who did the famous ice skating routine too. I know it because when I was a kid, I grew up in Spain, and in Spain we had a little house, and because it's so hot, you mostly live outdoors, because kind of, you put shades up and you live outdoors, and everyone talks to each other, and your neighbours are out, and everyone's in everyone's business, and that was amazing. But we had a neighbour who, I think his pride and joy was his brand new Sony hi-fi. Remember when they came out in the 80s, and they used to have these multiple stacks with like your radio and your cassette player and your record player on the top, and the graphic equalizer and stuff like that. So he got one of those, and he used to play Ravel's Bolero, honestly, religiously, every day at full blast for maybe a couple of years. And because you live outdoors, I just really grew to absolutely hate the piece. I mean, it's bad enough that it repeats the melody, and it never changes that melody at all. And it just gets louder and louder, and the orchestration gets louder and louder, and the poor drummer just has to play that da 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 rhythm for about 300 bars. Anyway, I thought, why am I telling you all this? Well, the thing that struck me about the podcast, and I suppose this is the important detail and why I'm just quickly sharing this stream of consciousness coming out of my head now, is for this scientist, Anne Adams, even when her husband was saying, even when she'd lost all her ability to feed herself and clothe herself and she didn't know where she was, she would still go in to her studio and she still painted. And obviously towards the end of her life, because she died, she was in her 60s in the end, the disease took her life, but she'd sit in front of the canvas, and even when she didn't have the strength or coordination to paint, she would just stare at the canvas and so this desire to create and be creative was overwhelmingly strong, even at the point where when she's asked about what her job was, she wouldn't say she was a scientist anymore. She just would say one word: art. And it struck me that how powerful that instinct is to be creative, and perhaps how we overlook it as a way of it is something. It is kind of really important to what makes us a human, to be creative and feel like we have a place in the world. And I took two thoughts away from it, really, that I thought would be you'd appreciate me sharing with you. The first thing was just that act of resistance, that act of creating beauty. Being creative gives us a real reason to be, and also just this sense of gratitude that obviously her husband was talking about Anne in these just this sense of awe of this woman he knew, and how much he appreciated her and how much she meant to him. And so on one hand, so there's this thing of gratitude that, I felt gratitude that I'm in a place where I am able to be creative, and not just with music, obviously, all the other things that I do, the handcrafts that I do, making stuff out of wood, which I love, doing videos, photography, and all those things. And then secondly, just in that, the importance of valuing things that are, it's a challenge to me, is you can easily overlook things like your friends and your family and become a bit obsessed with all this stuff and miss the whole point of what it is to be alive. So I'm going camping next week with my family, and I'm definitely one of those guys who finds it hard to switch it off, but I'm not going to take any work with me. My mobile phone's not going to be switched on. I'm just going to really focus on spending time with my friends and my family. A whole load of us go on a camping trip every year. A load of friends go up to the Lake District and just sit around the fire cooking stuff and going swimming in the lake and going on walks. And I spend most of the week barefoot, and life just slows down. And so it's just this twofold thing, this active balance of being creative, because that makes us human, and creating beauty is something that's really important to being alive, and then also valuing the things around us and the people around us as well, and not missing stuff, And I suppose this is my final thought, is that, let's not be people who don't know what we've got till it's gone, like the Joni Mitchell song says. Let's be people who fight, who resist, to do the things that make us feel alive and the things that make us feel human. That we do things to make the world a better place, and not destroy stuff. So I suppose that's how it impacted me. I suppose my thoughts for you guys listening to the podcast is, I guess, and for all of us, what are we doing to maximise our creativity? I mean, being a musician, for example, is not for everybody. I quit my job to do this, but that's not for everybody. But how can you maximise the creative aspects of the things that you do in your job already? Maybe you're an accountant, or maybe you do things that are jobs that might be deemed as having no creativity to them at all, but that's not really true. There's really creative aspects to everything that we do in our jobs. So maybe there's something that you or we can do to maximise our creative potential in the situation we're already in. Also, maybe you need to adapt what you're doing, but maybe you need to make changes. Maybe you need to make some really big, brave changes, and think about what is it that makes you feel really alive. What are your passions, and how can you spend more time doing that? I said earlier, I'm just shooting this video on a camera. I'm just going to upload it pretty much as it is to YouTube and put on the podcast, and that's like a conscious decision, because whilst I want to definitely talk to you guys who follow what I do and support what I do and try and be encouraging and, if at all possible, inspirational. So you can spend too much time doing the wrong stuff. So me simplifying is part of that process. So that's my thought, guys. Art as Resistance Part 2. Let's not be people who don't know what we have till it's gone, and let's just really maximise the creative things that we do and spending time with the people that we love. There you go, guys. That's my thought for the day. Peace, love, and good happiness stuff to you all, and I'll see you soon. Bye.